Welcome to the Business with Beers podcast. This is the place where we help entrepreneurs expand their business, build their wealth, and generate passive income. I'm your host, Brian Beers, an entrepreneur who's on a mission to inspire growth from everyone around me. Remember that you need to take the actions others won't, and you can live the life that others don't. Please be sure to check out my weekly newsletter that now drops every Thursday. It includes one quote, one tweet, one podcast recommendation, plus some business and investing insight from me. It's short and it's sweet. My goal is to provide you with just a couple gold nuggets to help inspire your growth. Go to brianbeers.com to subscribe. Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to bring you Cindy Zuniga-Sanchez. Cindy is a money coach, a speaker, and the author of Overcoming Debt, Achieving Financial Freedom, 8 Pillars to Build Wealth. Cindy is also the founder of Zero-Based Budget Coaching, a personal finance education platform for millennial women. Welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brian.
Awesome. Well, to start, can you give me an idea of your journey from maybe 18 years old or so to kind of how you kind of got to where you are today? And then we'll kind of dive into your book and all the cool things that you teach people about.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, as the daughter of immigrants, first generation, born and raised in the low income community, education has always been my primary focus. And so immediately I knew that college would sort of be this way out of poverty. I mean, that's what my parents taught me growing up. That's what my teachers taught me. And so I went to college at Stony Brook University, a public university for the state of New York system. There I majored in business management, political science. Initially, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Then I realized very quickly that the hospital environment is not for me. And I quickly developed this love of the law, of policy, and that really piqued my interest to go to law school. And so when I graduated from Stony Brook, I only had about maybe $10,000 or $11,000 of student loans because, like I mentioned, it's a public university. Tuition is pretty reasonable. I did also get a full scholarship, with the exception of my 5th year. I did actually stay an additional year in college because, who doesn't want to stay in college for another year? And my big first financial decision that I had to make was in attending law school, taking on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. So becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, a dentist, any of those types of professions involves hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt typically because scholarships are quite scant. And, most schools are not running to offer generous financial aid packages at that level. And so for me, it's not as if my parents had any type of savings for my college, higher education generally. And so when I started law school, I knew that I had this burden. I was very mindful of that financial burden that I had on me. And so a big goal of mine was, get the good paying job, Cindy. That wasn't my only motivation, of course. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, right? I want to be really honest here and say that knowing that I would be able to help my parents financially, after graduating law school with a good job offer was a big motivation, for me while I was in law school to make sure that I graduated at the top of my class and all of that. And when I graduated law school, I did graduate with the, coveted job offer for the fancy law firm in New York City, right? But I also graduated with over $200,000 of debt. And that's really where my money journey started because as the first generation daughter of immigrants, I had little to no financial literacy. And so for me, it was really important to self-teach, when it comes to everything related, budgeting, investing, paying off debt. And through that journey, I started my business. I started Zero-Based Budget actually just on social media because I wanted to share my story. I wanted to provide my perspective and, which is, a diverse voice in this space, super important to me. And fast forward many years later, I did pay off all of my debt in December 2019. And in May 2021, I made the decision to leave my law firm and pursue full-time entrepreneurship, where now I write about all things money. And yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster. But that's,
okay,
just a couple of minutes, what my story generally is and how I got here.
That's great. And quite the accomplishment. Yeah. So talk to me about zero-based budgeting. What does that mean?
Yeah.
How does it work? Let's start there.
Yeah. So I named my Instagram handle zero-based budget based on the budgeting method that I was using to get myself out of the $200,000 of debt. And that budgeting method basically involves allocating a job, for every dollar that you bring in. So as an example, if you bring in $4,000 in net income in any given month, then you want to give a job to each of those $4,000, right? Some of those are going to go into your future goals, like investing and saving. Some of them are going to go to your current expenses. And then some of those are going to go to pay, debts that you might have. But the point is that you want to give a job to every single dollar that you bring in, so you can be really, really mindful of where your money is going. I am of the opinion, call me biased if you will, and that's totally fair, that it is one of the best ways to manage your money, especially if you're starting a journey of getting good with money, because you're going to become hyper aware of where your dollars are going.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And a lot of people listen to this show are looking to start their first business. I'm into franchising. I own a bunch of franchises, and a lot of them are looking to buy their first franchise, and, maybe they have a job, or maybe they're about to take on a bunch of debt, by starting a business. And so I think, really understanding not only a business's P&L, but like what's your personal P&L is key. So, so talk a little bit further. Cause I've looked into zero-based budgeting. I found it like really confusing. Yeah. At least the software. Cause I use like YNAB or whatever. Like, talk me through like, what is it like? Can we go through like an example of just like kind of what this looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of starting with a simple spreadsheet. I offer my community a free budget spreadsheet because it's, you can buy them, right? Like on Etsy or whatnot. But I offer it free for my community because I think it's something that's really easy that you can kind of just plug in your numbers. And so if you go ahead and plug in your numbers at the very top, right? Or you can do this pen and paper for those of you that may be listening and prefer a more pen and paper type of approach. Start with really acknowledging what you bring in. See, that's the problem. I think a lot of times we say, wow, like I made all this money last year and I have nothing to show for it. If that's you, if you've ever had that sentiment, try this method. Try it for a month or two. Even if you don't ultimately stick to zero-based budgeting, the act of actually taking that very honest look at where your money is going, right? At first, putting your income at the very top and then giving a job to whatever that money will be. So for example, let's go off of the previous number, the $4,000. So if you're putting your $4,000 up at the very top, then assign it to these three buckets, the three main buckets, which is like investing, savings, kind of your future expenses, your current expenses, and then your debt payoff. And so again, just as an example, let's say you're saving and investments of that $4,000, you're going to do $500 to that. And your current expenses, you're going to do $3,000, your rent, your transportation, you always want to have an amount for miscellaneous because things come up, right? So let's say you want to put $100 in a miscellaneous category, and then the remaining $500 is going to go to your debt payoff. Right. So what we've done there is we've given a job to all $4,000. They're all accounted for. And now, because I want to walk you through it practically what this might look like, a lot of times people's hesitation is, well, Cindy, not everything always goes to plan though. Right. So if I'm giving all these dollars, these perfect assignments, what if something comes up? And for that, I will say, make sure that you have an emergency fund to cover unexpected emergency expenses, but also sinking funds. Brian, I love putting in sinking funds into my budget. And a sinking fund is basically saving for a short or midterm expense. For example, travel. Let's say you love traveling. I would go ahead and throw in maybe, $200 every single month towards your travel fund. Now, this is included in that budget, right? So in this division, right, that we're talking about, how are we going to allocate our income? We're accounting for these things that we value in our life. And I think that when you do that, a zero-based budget is not intuitive, I don't think, right? It's not something that you're just going to overnight become a wizard at. And if you do, that's amazing, right? Kudos to you. For me, it took me several months to get used to it. But by me actually, before the month came up, making a plan for my upcoming month's, division of how I'm going to actually, allocate my income, I became really aware of, well, how much, given all of this, how much more can I send to my debt? And that was really important during my debt payoff journey, where I was being really aggressive about my student loans. So initially my student loan minimum payment was $2,000. This is before I refinanced my debt. So for me, the question was, okay, that's my minimum payment. What more can I do? Looking at my budget, right? Looking at all my obligations, what more can I possibly throw to my debt? And maybe the answer was 200 or 300, maybe it was less, maybe it was more, but the budget is going to reveal that to you. So I think that just starting with a simple spreadsheet or even just pen and paper is great. But if you want to take it to the next level, especially if you use your phone a lot, I recommend using a budget app, right? So you mentioned YNAB earlier. YNAB is a great option. You can do There's the Much budget app, which is a newer one released by my friend actually not so long ago. There's the Every Dollar budget app. There's, Mint. You can use various budget apps to help you with your journey. And that's definitely something I recommend to my community.
So then do you have people then set up separate bank accounts too? So you have the fund, right? And you have this money allocated, but that sinking fund, you kind of look at your bank account, you see one number, but in reality, if it's already all earmarked, I don't know, it can be kind of confusing. What do you do for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually am a big fan of doing any, just as for example, if you're including investing as part of your zero-based budget, for example, a Roth IRA, that's going to go into another account, right? So that money allocated is not going to sit in your checking account. It's going to be allocated to that goal. I'm of the mind that you should also do the same for your savings. Get that money out, get your sinking funds out into another account, ideally. So for me, I'm a big fan of Ally Bank, and I like them specifically because they have this feature called savings buckets. So even though I have one account with them, I don't have multiple accounts with them. I have one account number, but my money is separated into these buckets. So you can have your emergency fund as a bucket. You can have your travel fund as another bucket, or a house down payment fund, or a car down payment fund, or maybe you have pets and, things come up, vet bills come up. So every month, for example, you set aside $50 a month for your pet, and that can grow in this pet sinking fund. So I'm a big on visuals, which is why I particularly like this feature. And I like the act of actually physically moving money out of my checking account per what my budget is telling me to do. My budget is telling me, for example, you have 3 sinking funds, Cindy, that you're saving for this month. Go ahead and get that money out. And then once it's in that separate account, you can actually look at, this is how much I have in that fund, or this is how much I have in the other one. Yeah. So it makes it easy that way.
Why is it called a sinking fund?
I think it's because once you spend, it's like the sunk cost of actually what's being spent on. The money in a sinking fund, to be clear, is meant to be spent. Okay. Right? It's not something that you're going to have guilt associated with. Oh my God. You've already
allocated it.
Yeah, exactly. It's specifically allocated, for these purposes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And in the business world, I had Mike McCallowitz on, who's the author of Profit First, which is basically a very similar model, but to your business, where you've set up separate bank accounts and you allocate money. Sales come in, and then you're allocating to your operating expenses. You allocate towards taxes and other big expenses you're gonna have to pay on a annual basis, and then you have a profit account. So then you move kind of money into this profit account, and then you figure out how to operate your business on less, because you've already taken out taxes, you've already taken out your profit, and then it's where can I find the room in my expenses to operate the business, and you become leaner, you become meaner, you become more creative.
Right. And the same would apply for people that are on a maybe debt payoff journey or an aggressive investing journey, right? Is being really, I think the commonality here is being really mindful, right? Really mindful of your numbers versus just kind of playing blind to what's actually going on with your own money.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. If you don't measure it and you don't manage it, you're never going to improve it, and it's just going to happen. So what are then some of the ways you advise people then, and it doesn't matter what income level you are. I think a lot of times, there's this whole income expansion or life expansion thing that happens, right? Where the more money you make, the more money you spend.
Of course.
And then your income drops, but then you still like spend the same amount or try to spend the same amount. And then you become in trouble. I've seen that happen a lot. And so, I think for people, you pay off debt and then you kind of get on this wealth building journey. You have to be, conscious to try to like keep your expenses the same, right? As your income increases. Like that's how you build it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are some ways that you recommend to kind of people to kind of, so they can stay, maybe a little bit more conservative in order to pay off the debt. And then obviously then to kind of build this future.
I think that the first thing is being really aware of what does 1 month of necessary living expenses look like for you, right? Get very honest, and you can do it now, right? Even if you're listening to this podcast right now, grab a pen and paper. What is your mortgage or rent amount? What do you on average spend a month on groceries, which I understand month over month, it seems like that number is just increasing, right? But like, let's just get, where we are right now, what you're spending on that. Get your transportation expenses, of course, right? That's also necessary. Gas, your car payment, car insurance, maybe your child's school tuition, right? You want to get a firm hold of what does 1 month of necessary living expenses look like for you? And then look at how much you're spending on any given month. See, that difference there is really your discretionary spending, right? The Target, the Amazon, the entertainment, personal spending, all of that. And I think that awareness, like just, real talk, that awareness of what do I need versus what do I want? That is really eye-opening for us, because when I first did that, I realized, I don't need as much as I thought I did. I can do with a lower amount. Now, I'm not saying that you need to live that way, but especially if you're pursuing goals like increasing your investments or getting really aggressive with your debt payoff, that number is going to help you realize, okay, well then the difference between my needs and what I'm actually spending / what's included with my wants, let's just say that difference is $1,000, and the $1,000, on any given month would just be spent on, random discretionary spending. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have those things that you want in your life, but assess, of all these things that I'm spending on, what do I value? Like, what do I truly value? What's really important to me? What do I really care about? And make room for that in your budget, in your spending plan. But then, see what you can take from that to throw towards your financial goals. There's a delicate balance that should be played. I think there's a lot of people that get very, very aggressive where they're like, I'm going to be super, super lean. I'm only going to live off of exactly what I need. And I think that that's not sustainable. All right. I really don't think that's sustainable. I think you will burn out a lot quicker. But big picture, I think you'll resent your journey and you're more likely to give up. So we want to make sure we play a nice balance. So if, for example, you really value travel, maybe we make an intentional plan to ensure that we're putting some money towards travel, but you don't really value dining out so much. You really do it just because it's convenient. So maybe instead we're more mindful of our grocery budget and preparing meals that we have on hand at home that we can just either heat up or put together in 20 minutes or less. And we're not just throwing money on that where, especially like takeout and things like that, you're going to be paying not just for your food, but like taxes and delivery fees and tip and all of that, right? So you're just being more mindful of where your money is going, but it's really based on what you truly value versus just spending for the sake of spending. Yep.
So let's pivot and talk about your entrepreneurial journey and like, what does your kind of business kind of look like today? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I started my business officially in 2019 after I had people from my community, but also family and friends reaching out to me, asking me for help with their budget. How do I create one? How do I create a debt repayment plan? I want to increase my credit score but I have all this credit card debt, right? Like I kind of just need someone to help me out. And so I provided really low cost coaching services for two-ish years. And I did that on the side, totally on the side. I had I don't want to say 9 to 5 because it wasn't a 9 to 5. It was like a 24/7. I had my law firm job, right?
Yeah.
Where I was practicing as a commercial litigation associate, and, really enjoyed the work that I was doing. And I was doing this work on the side. But then things grew really, really quickly. My community on social media grew really quickly, which meant that more companies, schools were noticing me and my work, and they were hiring me to speak to their community, whether it's their employees, their students, their members. And brands also started reaching out to me too. And so I started realizing that there's this big opportunity that I could take advantage of, with my personal finance education. And so I decided, after bringing in some money, like my first year in 2019, I brought in a little under $20,000, right? I didn't take any of that money. I kept it totally in the business. I also didn't need the money, right? I had my law firm job, which provided more than enough income for me to live off of and whatnot. And then my second year, I brought in a little over $40,000. So I doubled my revenue, and I thought, maybe there's something here. Maybe I can work something out here. Maybe I can make this grow. And in 2021, I realized very quickly that not only could this grow, but I can do mission-driven work that has always been on my heart, which is ultimately to serve my community. As a woman of color, it's always been super important to me to put my community first in everything that I do. And I realized this is a way that I can spread the message, reach my community, much further than I ever imagined. So let's take the leap. And so I did. So in May 2021, I left my law firm job, which is one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, right? Because I truly loved my firm and my colleagues and the work that I was doing. But I think also with the pandemic, everything happening, people realizing that life is incredibly short. So, if you're able to take the leap, do it. And so I did prepare financially for that leap, set up my emergency fund, all those things, took the leap. And a few months after doing so, I was offered a book deal. And that was really the main project that I worked on from late 2021 through 2022. And now in the meantime, I, had speaking engagements, brand partnerships, and I also created a course. So different revenue streams from my, for my business, but generally the basis is personal finance education. Yep. First and foremost. But yeah, that's sort of how it's been running, and it's exciting. It's all very new to me. I never considered myself an entrepreneur, not by any stretch of the imagination. And, now that I am one, it's every day is something new.
Okay. And are you making more money now than you did before?
Absolutely not. No,
but you got the freedom.
No. I mean, when I left my law firm, I was bringing in about $300,000 a year as an attorney, and
Yep.
With base salary and bonuses. And now I would be at a much higher amount than that, But no. With my business, I mean, I am paying myself a very small amount compared to what I was earning as an attorney. But I see the potential, to
Yep.
one day get to those numbers. But I'd be lying if I said that is my sole motivation for going into entrepreneurship and for going into business, because I understand that for a lot of people, that does happen, right? They leave their jobs and very quickly their business grows and they're making more than they did as an employee. I offer the different perspective where that's not my situation at all. But I am really happy doing the work that I do, and I truly enjoy it.
Are you happier?
It's a tough question, right? Because I was happy as an associate. I enjoyed my work. I enjoyed my cases, but it's different work. It's a different type of skill set that I use. As an attorney, as a litigator, I did a lot of research and writing, negotiating. And now as an educational digital content creator and speaker and author, the work is just different. It is much more community based. So I will say there's that. That definitely speaks to my heart a lot. But I will say that I am glad that I can use my skills as an attorney in the work that I do now, because I also still negotiate with, partners that want to work on a speaking engagement presentation for their audience, or, companies that reach out for a brand partnership. So I do get to utilize that skill set, but it's a different feeling. I will say that I do enjoy this work that I do, and I feel really fortunate to be able to do it.
Could you get a job as an attorney again if you wanted to?
Yes. Yep. And I actually do want to go back to practice law, which is something that really surprises a lot of people when I share that with them. And I don't think I would go into what I was doing before, which is a commercial litigation at a large law firm. I think I would probably want to go in-house. So actually working, for a specific company as counsel, and ideally something along the lines of consumer goods. So before I left my firm, I mainly focused on consumer class action defense work, specifically in the consumer goods area of food, beverages, dietary supplements, and cosmetics. So going into a food beverage company or a cosmetic company, I think would be really fun and exciting. And, I think that, before all of this, Brian, to be very honest with you, I thought life was so linear. And I thought that you just had to follow a specific path. And now I embrace that life is what you want it to be. So, if I want to leave and maybe if I want to pivot from entrepreneurship back to being an attorney in maybe 2 years, I still have my license. I'm still keeping up, my license requirements. You do need to complete certain legal education requirements every year to ensure that your license is active. Mine is still active. And so we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, it's one thing I talk to a lot of people who are currently have W-2s and they're looking to start their own business. And there's always this fear of making the jump. But in a lot of cases, even if the business doesn't work out, all of them or most of them are highly employable people that can go out and get another job. And the risk, the risk of them not doing anything and and missing out on this big opportunity is actually way bigger than the risk of, failing the business and then going back and continuing to actually just be where they were before they made the jump.
I absolutely agree with that. And so absolutely. Yes.
It's just I don't know, like you said, life's short. I think, I don't know, you want to live the best life. You got to control your own destiny at some point. And for a lot of people, they're highly employable, and the downside is very low compared to the upside potential, which is unlimited, right? You own a business, you unlimited income, potentially unlimited time, freedom, 24/7 hour work, right? It's your business, but the rewards can be there. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. How was the book deal? Talk to me about that. Was that what was your biggest challenge, I guess, in writing a book? I've thought about it as well. So
it was really exciting because, the opportunity came in early fall 2021. And I've always had a book on my heart, and I've always had a book in my mind. I just never had it on paper. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I didn't, unlike a lot of authors, they work with an agent and then their proposal gets put up on auction, and then publishers can go ahead and go at it to see who wants it. That's not actually what happened with me. My publisher reached out to me directly. And so I saw that as an opportunity. It's also, I'm with Wiley, and I knew that Wiley had a great reputation in this space, specifically in personal finance. And I thought this is a great opporty,
So did they pitch to you to say, hey, we want you to write a book on personal finance? Or did they say, hey, do you have a book you want to write? And then which direction did it go? Yeah,
they reached out to me and they were if I've ever thought about writing a personal finance book, and if so, if I can, have a chat with them. And I did. And during my chat, I said, this is generally the kind of idea that I have. And really for me, it was always about writing a personal finance book from the perspective of a first generation Latina. That was always super important to me, because when I started my financial freedom journey, I went to the bookstore, as most of us do, and I saw no Latino personal finance authors, like not one on the bookshelves. And that matters. Representation really, really does matter. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to be able to offer something. I wanted to add that value, to the book community. And I presented my ideas, just roughly. They really liked what I had to say. I put together a proposal, sent them the proposal. They presented it to their team, including their global team. They really liked it as well. I hired a literary attorney, and they negotiated the deal, and that was that. And I got to writing. And I will say that the most difficult part of that, honestly, was ensuring that I maintained this very rigorous schedule to write.
Yep.
That's the hardest part of writing, is writing, getting your thoughts on paper in an organized manner, in a manner that is capturing all your ideas, but is also being communicated to your reader in a way that's going to be digestible for them. Because we have a million thoughts running through our heads that make sense to us.
Yeah. And you got to connect them, and I get it.
But exactly, will your reader connect to your words and your message?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is sometimes you can go down these rabbit holes and all over the place, and it's like really trying to stay condensed and simple, and always kind of on point. So that's cool. And so where can people connect and learn more about you and buy your book? And if they want to be part of your community, what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So I'm most active on Instagram. I'm at Zero Based Budget. I also have a TikTok, though TikTok is a little challenging for me. But you can also find me on there at Zero Based Budget. My website, zero-based-budget.com/book is where you can learn more about my new book, Overcoming Debt, Achieving Financial Freedom, 8 Pillars to Build Wealth. And you can buy it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You could just simply search it, and there's a bunch of options for you. But my website will also directly link you to the book. And, it's something that I have taken my years of experience speaking on the topic, coaching clients, but also my journey and what I've learned. And I've put that into book format so that, the reader, no matter where they are on their journey, if they're starting off like really, really fresh, or even if they're in the middle of it and they need a little bit of a pick-me-up or sort of just this resource book. I like to think of my book as the kind of book that you're not going to just read once and, one and done. Hopefully it'll live on your bookshelf after you read it as a resource, as a reference that you could just go back to. What was that chapter on debt? And what did she say about that? Or what did she say about credit scores or, building your credit? Let me just refer back to it. Like, that's the goal too, is that it's going to be this resource that you'll be able to go back to, and hopefully that you'll find a lot of value in.
Yep. That sounds awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story and, zero-based budgeting and all this stuff. It's been great. I think very educational. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
That's all we got for this episode with the Business with Beers podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is to rate the show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on your preferred social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find all my links at brianbeers.com. Please just share the podcast with anyone who you think might enjoy it. And until next time, remember to take the actions others won't, to live the life that others don't.